So we were talking in the shiur, first half of the summer, about Emunah. We're going to continue talking about Emunah and various different ways to come to Emunah Kodesh Baruch Hu. Now, in this section, which we have been going through, the author of the Sefer Otos HaMusar goes through the amazing wonders of the human body and how they're so complex and so intricate that it's impossible to accept that these things either came into being on their own or somehow developed over time. It's just not rational. But one which we went through in detail were the eyes. So the next, I'm just going to show you what he goes through very quickly. I'm going to really scroll through tens of pages right now. Then he goes how the nose works. Fascinating thing about the nose is that the sense of smell is that scientists are not able they are able to transmit sound, they're able to transmit vision, something you see, sight and sound, but they're not able to transmit smell, a fragrance. They can perhaps reproduce it, right? But they can't transmit it. There's no such thing as a smell-o-vision. So obviously there's this extraordinary thing called the nose, which human science, with all its advances, has not been able to imitate. As he says out here, the nose can actually experts. He says not real people. Most people can only distinguish a few thousand fragrances, but experts can distinguish 10,000 fragrances. So and he says the fragrances are different based on little nuances. And that's that creates all the difference in the world. Then he speaks about the purpose of the nose in breathing. Speaks about the mouth, which is the 10,000 taste buds which we have in our tongues, and how they transmit taste to the and of course taste is also something which scientists can reproduce, but they can't transmit. And the muscles of the tongue, which have to work with such complexity in order both to in the process of eating and the process of making speech. Then he goes to how intricate the process of swallowing is, and then he goes into the teeth and the system of the teeth and the tooth itself. Again, science cannot replicate a tooth. They when they give you a false tooth, it's nothing near the tooth of which Hashem has implanted in us. Then he goes to the capacity of speech, and then again, I'm going to just do this to show how many things one can explore and how fascinating they are, and that's why people should learn biology in order to see the wonders of Kodesh Baruch Hu's world in a human being. And he speaks about the lungs and how they transfer oxygen to the person, to the bloodstream, and release the carbon dioxide, and how a person is able to breathe 15,000 times a day, and how the lungs work faster and when a person needs more energy, or slower when a person's at rest, and so on and so forth. Then he speaks about the heart, which is an extraordinary pump. But he first says the reason why emotions are associated with the heart is because we feel the emotions in our heart, because the heart responds to our emotions and pumps blood either more or less in accordance with the emotions that we feel. So then he speaks about the characteristics of blood, and there's I want to mention this because I always found this amazing, is that the blood only clots when it hits the air. Blood does not clot in the human body. When blood clots in the human body, then you can suffer a very severe stroke or other type of problem. And the blood normally only clots when it hits the air. And this is a remarkable chemical, which he says called thromboplastin, which is in the blood, which hemophiliacs don't have, which is why they can bleed to death. They get a cut, but which knows how to heal the wound when a wound is open up, and how to be dormant when the wound is not open. Of course, the red blood cells and the white blood cells are also fascinating and so amazing. Then the digestive system. Now, again, a little bit about the digestive system, that the stomach, in order to digest food, has hydrochloric acid. If you put hydrochloric acid on any material made of the substance human body is made of, mostly carbon, so then it's going to dissolve it very, very quickly. And yet the hydrochloric acid in the stomach does dissolve the food. Yet it does not dissolve the stomach's walls. Because the stomach has a special lining which prevents that from happening. When that lining breaks down, people get ulcers. So the idea is, again, this intricate system had to be designed and implemented. And one stage, you can't put hydrochloric acid in the stomach and then wait for it to develop over time by accident a lining which prevents it from seeping through the stomach. And the lining, the production of hydrochloric acid itself would make no sense if there was no such lining. So there has to be a designer who designed all these things. And he goes through much more about this, and how the digestive system works, how it breaks apart, the various different things, and how the nutrients will get transferred to the body. And then he goes into the structure of the skeleton, the bones, how they work. And then into how bones can regenerate, which is a remarkable chemical characteristic which bones have, that they can be broken and then get healed. Goes through people's arms, which are incredibly sophisticated, and especially a person's hands, which work such an oriented way, and the feet and the palms of a person. It goes through the thighs, how the thighs support the body, because they have to take a tremendous amount of pressure. Certainly the spine, then the spine. And again, each of these things you can spend a long time, and probably one should spend a long time analyzing all these things to realize that there's a design. And it's not just the human body. Obviously, there's so many other things out there which indicate the complexity of the creation and its wonder and its beauty, which indicate that there's a designer. From that one comes to a belief in a God who created the world. Because then he speaks about the muscles, about the skin, the systems in the body which protect against diseases, which also mostly goes through the blood, and sneezing, and reflexes. And then he goes into reproduction, which of course is an extraordinary miracle in and of itself. So this is, for some reason, he doesn't, I haven't seen him mention it, maybe he does, I skipped over it, but I think also the kidneys, more than anything else, not more than anything else, are also a strong indication that the body is able to dispose of waste and cleanse itself. Is an amazing thing, and also indicates that there's some entity which created it, because otherwise it had to work the first time around. It didn't work, then the person would die of poisoning in his blood. So all these things indicate not that our God is the God, but that there is a God. The next section comes to discuss how we know our God is the God. So this I'm going to start to do inside. Ofen Dalit, the fourth way of basing our belief in. The first three ways he gave were all related to the complexity and the nuances of the human being and creation. But now, fourth says, looking at the analyzing the history of the Jewish people. And the first day of the school year, I don't know if you remember, but usually what I do is I explain why history, in my opinion, is the most important topic in the list of topics which one learns in school. And this year I actually got in trouble because some the boys told one of the Rebbeim that I said that history is the most important subject, and some people were upset. How could I say that? Isn't Gemara the most important subject? So in any event, be that as it may, but in fact, history is extremely important because it teaches us Emunah. And it says, about 250 years ago, Shaluas Kant, Immanuel Kant was Migdalei Philosoph one of the great philosophers of the non-Jews. Does he have a simple proof of the existence of a creator? Now, Kant did not like Judaism so much. He was okay with Jews. I don't think he was anti-Semite, but he didn't like Judaism so much. He answered me, the existence of the Jewish people. Merishisa historia from the beginning of history, there has not been a nation which has been so persecuted. By the most difficult oppressions, whether they were in order to destroy us physically or to force us to convert. The list is long, and he just gives a few examples here. Bishnas nun the 1100s, Garshu Kol Yudim Anglia, all the Jews was kicked out of England. Bishnas Samach Vav le'elef hanochachi, shortly thereafter, 16 years later, they were kicked. Garshu Yudim Safas and kicked out of Spain. Bishnas Reish Beis, which is 1492, Garshu Min Sfarad, they were kicked out of Spain. Bishnas Reish Nun Hey, a few years later, Nigrushu Hu Yudim Min Lita, they were kicked out of Lithuania. Bishnas Shin Nun Tes, Garshu Min Vienna, they were kicked out of Vienna. And if in my ancestral homeland, my ancestral town, which is the town of Beshofen, from where Beckoffers come, they have a book of Minhagim. And the book of Minhagim, they have the Yizkor, they would say, I don't know if they said it every time people said Yizkor, but the special Yizkor, which mentioned over 300 kehilos, in which there was either pogroms or banishments, which took place over the course of history till that time. And we can't identify many of these the events, what exactly happened, but obviously the persecution has been extraordinary. And even they weren't kicked out of the whole country, like the Jews came to Beshofen in 1600, when my ancestors came in 1600, when they were kicked out of another town called Herodin. So obviously the persecution has been going on for a long time, consistently throughout history. And when they're banished, it's not so simple just go another place. When they're forced out from the place they live, they had nowhere to go in many cases. In other places, there weren't any open places to live. Jews were usually overcrowded into ghettos, and there was very little room for expansion. There certainly was very little work, parnasa, so they can make a living. One second. Okay, just hold on a second, I'll be right back. Okay. So Jews in other places, they were also very poor. They could not financially support the refugees, new refugees who came from them. It's obvious. Many people who were exiled from their original places, they died of malnutrition, of starvation. Because when they lacked the proper nutrition, the body is weakened. It's not protected against bacteria, and the contagious diseases. Not more than this, maybe of the wild nations of the world, they were violent and ravaged the mammonam, the money of the Jews, even the same, and the daughters of the Jews. And sometimes just for no reason, they would beat us with hard and cruel blows. Since their priests would go and tell the congregants that we're responsible for the death of their Lord. The kings of nations and their noblemen were silent when these plots took place. When pogroms took place. They saw this a healthy outlet to release the anger which of the masses, which mostly are based not on the Jews, of course, but the masses suffered from difficult economic situations and exorbitant taxes. Actually, the government or the rulers, they're interested in directing the anger of the masses towards the Jews. Said directed at them. And they undermine, in case they would undermine their government. Every murder and every torture, is a terrible tragedy in and of itself. We say when the evils reach tens of thousands of cases. A couple of things. The Khmelnytsky massacres in Ukraine in the 1600s. Also, they were upset at their Polish overlords, and who own most of the land and most of the businesses in the Ukraine, and they took it out on the Jews because the Jews were a convenient scapegoat. A lot of Jews had the concessions to run the estates because they were pretty smart, whether it was running the estates themselves or running inns on the estates. So therefore, they took out their anger on the Jews. In Arab states today, there are many problems. So in order for the Arabs to avoid having to deal with the problems, they deflect the anger of their populations at the Jews because it makes it keeps them safe. Keeps the rulers safe, and that makes the rulers not have to confront the difficulties in their countries. This Menosh Maharal, the time Maharal goes through, they made the Krish Asa Yudim Shebeghetto. It was forbidden for Jews who lived in the ghetto. Lakim Latzmam to erect for themselves, hoping on Emigrim other places to live. Which would have diminish the crowding. Days of the Gross, the Jews and Arabs get married before the age of 30. So we don't know what the Gross last name was, whether it was Lando or Kramer, because I forget which was which, but we don't, depending on whether his parents were officially married or not officially married, either if he went by his father's name or his mother's name. So many Jews had to not be officially married because the government wouldn't let them. The next generation, so Jewish kids were drafted, and there was a quota. Every community had to provide a certain amount of kids in order to meet the quota. And they were drafted at the age of 12 and spent the next 25 years in the army. And this is with a wicked plot. To cut them off from the Torah of Am Yisrael. Throughout the years, the nations of the world have had taken all sorts of strange or deviant ideas. And they to afflict us with special taxes. We're now allowed to live outside certain places. In Russia, for a couple hundred years, the Jews are now allowed to live out of the pale of the settlement. The Jew couldn't live in St. Petersburg or Moscow unless they had a special permit. They had to live in a more impoverished area where in itself Parnasa was very difficult. And astonishingly enough, Am Yisrael Jewish people still exists and thrives. All the ancient nations, the Moabim, the Ammonim, the Canaanim, the Sumerians, the Akkadians, the Akkadians, over they no longer exist. There's no memory of even of their civilizations. Gam Roma v'Yavan over, and even the great Rome and before the great Greece, they're nothing compared to what they once were. As far as their languages are extinct, their religions are extinct, and the way they live their lives is extinct as well. Only by Jews they sustain till today ways of life that were Abai and Rava who lived in the 300s come back to life. They would see people keeping Torah in our midst. They would testify they would testify this is derech to which we taught. Only Judaism is something which would be recognizable to somebody who lived hundreds and thousands of years ago. On the other hand, the nations which exist today, they're all relatively new. Not sure exactly what he means. William the Conqueror conquered England in 1066. But in any event, he says it's around about 700 years, maybe past then. Its culture was not fully formed yet. But also and then the ancient Germans, the Teutons, Garim Biaros, they lived in forests, Kmokofim, right? They're like they're monkeys. Americans also a nation for more than 300 years. Hareza Tofa, please says, amazing, astonishing thing. Sadachot, on the one hand, in the new year, the Fim, we are persecuted, B'shetzev Ketzev, unceasingly. Love Sako without interruption, and without any respite. On the other hand, will succeed and existing more than any other group. Angels Elagodel who are Roa Shemer Alenu must be that there's a great shepherd who protects us. The Kamar Abelezer Goyachon. Abelezer the Tana said to a certain Goy, Keneged Haitzos, standing opposite the councils. Everything you sit and think in your hearts to come to us and destroy us. God destroys your counsels. Amarlo and Hagoy, the Goy said back to him, Chayecha, by your life. Kachi, that's exactly what happens. We sit down every year to try and find a way to destroy you. And some old man, usually understood Yoanovi, comes and disrupts our councils. He says that this old man Zelio, in our days we see Shakol Lemikotse Munyan Levatel Mitzius Yishuv Yisrael B'Shmartzenu. The whole world would love to see the state of Israel not exist. Varak Hey Muchulakim Valzeh. The only question is how they would like to see us destroyed. Just since they're not united, therefore, they're involved in their own struggles, between themselves. In the meantime, there is fulfilled as the jug broke, and we fled. So there is constant concern with the Jewish nation, and a sense that either Jews or Judaism are a pain, and they would like to get rid of us. The idea of Jews and Judaism being something which the non-Jews want to destroy is not all non-Jews, of course. Many non-Jews are fine people. But this idea is probably related directly to the fact that if you look through newspapers over time, the country which is discussed more than any other country, except possibly in American newspapers, the United States, and other countries, their own country. But more than any other country is Israel. There's this obsession with Israel. And it's very often a very negative obsession. So, and yet we continue to thrive, to be successful. As the Chumash says, when we are afflicted, we nevertheless went and increased and multiplied. So, every day that the Jewish nation continues to survive, is new miracle. Chazal said, it's just like a bird is at the mercy of a hunter. If he wants to kill a hunter, wants to kill him. If he wants, he can keep him alive. They were totally at the mercy of the Egypts and the Egypts. It says, they're like a bird in a person's hands. If the bones of a bird are very brittle, they have to be very porous so it can fly. So if you hold a bird the wrong way, you can crush it or suffocate it to death. So pressure with the he's going to the bird is going to suffocate to death. And we're in that situation, and yet it doesn't happen. Also says what is it like? Like a donkey which is being ridden by a person. So they saw the donkey. The donkey saw a child in the marketplace. It jumped over him and didn't damage him. So everybody started praising the donkey. What a wise and righteous donkey. The owner said to him, if not for me that I directed the donkey by pulling on his reins, he would have damaged the children. And this is they said, Kasher Avimelech Shelo Karvet Sarah. In other words, people said, Rabiros, that Avimelech must be a righteous person because he didn't have relations with Sarah even after he took her. Akash Baruch said, no, I'm a Bakish. He wanted to. I didn't let him. I'm the one who drew him away. Somebody who knows our history, can see with clarity how in every step there was amazing intervention from the divine hashgacha to save the Jewish people. Any kind of he doesn't want to burn us with examples. Let's take a short example from the days of the Second World War. It's known that the Nazis conquered almost all of Europe, except for England. Because and at the beginning of the war, he had made a pact with Russia. Which is that a very mighty kingdom which reached to the very end of, not a kingdom, a very mighty country which reached to the end of Asia. Mussolini, Italia. He made a pact with Mussolini in Italy about and they then attacked the Africa and other countries there. Opposite this overwhelming force, lo nikar shumis nagade. There was no opponent who could be seen, who could have prevented the Nazis from accomplishing their goals. The United States at the beginning of the war, it was restrained from taking all action. Because of the disappointing end of the First World War, Kibla al atzma neutralis muchletes. America was completely neutral. And the policy is not to get involved. America and anything which is not directly involved with the American continent. Germany, so this German, this wicked German, couldn't destroy the entire Jewish nation. Unless they didn't let him from Shemaim. And here we see how divine intervention helps. And the ironic thing is that many people say that the Second World War is a difficulty for our Emunah. How can people believe after such atrocities were committed against the Jewish people? But the truth is the opposite. It's the Second World War and the Holocaust are supposed to strengthen our Emunah, because Am Yisrael is always persecuted. But in this case, they're never destroyed, even when the persecution was such an extraordinarily effective and powerful force like the Nazis. So here's several examples of Hashem getting involved. Aleph, Anglia, already before the Nazis defeated England. I see he doesn't like using the word Nazi. He just uses that's so rare, the adversary. After the Battle of Dunkirk, the English did not have any weapons. They left everything on the shores of France. When their quick and confused flight back to their own nation. So he could have finished England at that point. But he did. Kafbatz had Yot as a fool. He went to Russia and attacked Russia. When Moshe Shalom came, despite the fact that a year earlier, Karasitam Bris they had signed a non-aggression pact. Bekach, in this, he himself, against all military expertise, against his own plan, opened a second front in the east. In addition to the western front, which had not yet accomplished the defeat of England. Besides that, he didn't learn from Napoleon's mistake about 100 years before, 130. You should not break into Russia. A short time before the Russian winter. Because what happened was the cold destroyed Napoleon, the cold destroyed Hitler. Iran, that's what indeed happened. Sheleg, the snow, Bakfor, the frost, and Rav, the hunger, Chosamai, lack of water, decimated his army. If he had started at the end of the winter, of 1940-41, at the end of June. I'm sorry, he didn't start. He started in March instead of at the end of June, which was the stupid mistake he made. May Hashem would have been successful. At the same time, he was within reach of destroying and subjugating England. He also, we said before, the British lacked weapons, Machmasla and the Siegel of Dunkirk, because of the retreat in Dunkirk. Churchill, like their Prime Minister, Churchill wrote in the book of his memoirs, which he put together later on. In Anglia, had Hitler first finished off England, and only afterwards turned to Russia. He might have been successful. Another stumbling block Hashem, who holds the hearts of kings in his hand, made for him. He made the Germans joined forces in the Axis with Japan, which was a stupid mistake, because he should have left Japan, fight the United States on its own. He shouldn't have gotten involved. They attacked the Americans, but in the Pacific Ocean. And this necessarily compelled the Jews, the Americans, to get mixed up in the tumult of the war in Europe. And that was the end. Then America, with its industrial might, started making piles and piles of weaponry. And they transferred this to England, Anglia, but Tanai Ashram in extraordinary terms of credit. They drew up credit terms which would last for 99 years. And they sent a massive army themselves. Over 100,000 of soldiers to break into Europe. We can add many details. But it's not the purpose of the Sefer here. And we talk about this during the school year. So I think what he's going to talk about is El Alamein and Rommel's being absent. Then when the British counterattacked, and later on Rommel was not around when they attacked Normandy. So we're going to lose time. We're going to run out of time in less than a minute. So I think we'll start here next time with this example. And after he finishes this example, he's going to go on to other reasons why the God of the Jews should be the one we believe in. Now, this is not definitive proof, because you could say, oh, well, God kept the Jews around in order to persecute them. But it doesn't. There's a God, but he doesn't like us. But it doesn't make sense that he would make some miracles to save us if he didn't like us, despite all our enemies. Okay, I'll let you know. It was next Sunday. My son's getting married, so I'll let you know when we'll be able to learn next week, and we'll see if we can swing it. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.